back to that dinner long, long ago. On Thursday the 15th, April 1773, in fact. Martinelli told us that for several years he lived much with Charles Townshend, and that he ventured to tell him he was a bad joker. Johnson said, "Why, sir, thus much I can say upon the subject. One day he and a few more agreed to go and dine in the country, and each of them was so to bring a friend in his carriage with him. Charles Townshend asked FitzHerbert to go with him, but told him, 'You must find somebody to bring you back. I can only carry you there.' FitzHerbert did not much like this arrangement. He, however, consented, observing sarcastically, 'It will do very well, for then the same jokes will serve you in returning as I am going.'" An eminent public character, footnote tells us this is Burke, was mentioned. Johnson said, "I remember being present when he showed himself to be so corrupted, or at least something so different from what I think right as to maintain that a member of Parliament should go along with his party right or wrong. Now, sir, this is so remote from native virtue, from scholastic virtue, that a good man must have undergone a great change before he can reconcile himself to such a doctrine. It is maintaining that you may lie to the public, for you lie when you call that right which you think wrong, or the reverse. A friend of ours," a footnote here says Reynolds, "who is too much an echo of that gentleman, observed that a man who does not stick uniformly to a party is only waiting to be bought." "Why then," said I, "he is only waiting to be what that gentleman is already." We talked of the King's coming to see Goldsmith's new play. "I wish he would," said Goldsmith, adding, however, with an affected indifference, "not that it would do me the least good." Johnson said, "Well then, sir, let us say it would do him good." "Ha!" laughing. "No, sir, this affectation will not pass. It is mighty idle. In such a state as ours, who would not wish to please the chief magistrate?" Goldsmith said, "I do wish to please him. I remember a line in Dryden, 'And every poet is the monarch's friend.'" "It ought to be reversed." Johnson said, "Nay, there are finer lines in Dryden on this subject. 'For colleges on bounteous kings depend, never rebel was to arts a friend.'" General Paoli observed that successful rebels might let me read this again. I screwed this up. Johnson said, "Nay, there are finer lines in Dryden on the subject." This is quoting Dryden. "For colleagues on bounteous kings depend, and never rebel was to arts a friend." General Paoli observed that successful rebels might. Martinelli said, "Happy rebellions," and Goldsmith said, "We have no such phrase." General Paoli said, "But have you not the thing?" Goldsmith said, "Yes, all are happy revolutions. They have hurt our constitution and will hurt it, till we mend it by another happy revolution. I never before discovered that my friend Goldsmith had so much of the old prejudice in him." General Paoli, talking of Goldsmith's new play, said, "Il a fait compliment très gracieux d'une certaine grande dame," mentioning a duchess of the first rank. I expressed a doubt whether Goldsmith intended it, in order that I might hear the truth from myself. It, perhaps, was not quite fair to endeavor to bring him to a confession, as he might not wish to avow positively his taking part against the court. So, I wish we had this translated, because it's all based on what this says, and I don't know what it says, because it's in, I'm guessing, French or Italian. So I'll have to look it up later. to make sense of this. Anyway, Goldsmith smiled and hesitated. The general at once relieved him by this beautiful image. Oh, here we have some more French or Italian. Monsieur Goldsmith est comme la mer, qui jette des perles et beaucoup d'autres belles choses sans savoir apperçevoir. Sounds French to me, but... And Goldsmith replied, Très-bien dit, très-élégamment. So we'll look that up and post it, I guess, in the body of this video. Anyway, a person, a later footnote tells us this is Cavendish, was mentioned, who it was said could take down in shorthand the speeches in Parliament with perfect exactness. Johnson said, Sir, it is impossible. I remember one angel who came to me to write for him a preface or dedication to a book upon shorthand, and he professed to write as fast as a man could speak. In order to try him, I took down a book and read while he wrote, and I favored him, for I read more deliberately than usual. I had proceeded but a very little way, when he begged I desist, for he could not follow me. Hearing now for the first time of this preface or dedication, I said, What an expense, sir, do you put up to in buying books to which you have written prefaces or dedications? Johnson said, Why, I have dedicated to the royal family all round, that is to say, to the last generation of the royal family. Goldsmith said, And perhaps, sir, not one sentence of wit in a whole dedication. Ooh. Johnson said, Perhaps not, sir. I said, What then is the reason for applying to a particular person to do that which anyone may do as well? And Johnson said, Why, sir, one man has greater readiness at doing it than another. I spoke of Mr. Harris of Salisbury as being a very learned man, and in particular an eminent Gretchen. Johnson said, I am not sure of that. His friends give him out as such, but I know not who of his friends are able to judge of it. Goldsmith said, He is what is much better. He is a worthy, humane man. And Johnson said, Nay, sir, that is not to the purpose of our argument. That will as much prove that he can play upon the fiddle as well as Giardini, as that he is an eminent Gretchen. Goldsmith said, The greatest musical performers have but small emoluments. Giardini, I am told, does not get above 700 a year. Johnson said, That is indeed but little for a man to get, who does best that which so many endeavor to do. There is nothing, I think, in which the power of arts is shown so much as in playing on the fiddle. In all other things we can do something at first. Any man will forget a bar of iron if you give him a hammer. Any man will forge a bar of iron if you give him a hammer. Not so well as a smith, but tolerably. A man will saw a piece of wood and make a box, though a clumsy one. But give him a fiddle and a fiddlestick, and he can do nothing. That's a good point. On Monday, April 19th, Johnson called on me with Mrs. Williams and Mr. Strahan's coach and carried me out to dine with Mr. Alvinston at his academy at Kensington. A printer, having acquired a fortune sufficient to keep his couch, was a good topic for the credit of literature. Mrs. Williams said that another printer, Mr. Hamilton, had not waited so long as Mr. Strahan, but had kept his coach several years sooner. Johnson said, He was in the right. Life is short. The sooner that a man begins to enjoy his wealth, the better. Mr. Alvinston talked of a new book that was much admired, and asked if Dr. Johnson had read it. Johnson said, I have looked into it. What, said Alvinston, have you not read it through? Johnson offered at being thus pressed and so obliged to own his cursory mode of reading, answered tartly, "No, sir. Do you read books through?" Ooh, I like that. He then, this day, again defended dueling, and put his argument upon what I have even thought the most solid basis, that if public war be allowed to be consistent with morality, private war must be equally so. That's a good point. Indeed, we may observe that strained arguments are used to reconcile war with the Christian religion. But, in my opinion, it is exceedingly clear that dueling, having better reasons for its barbarous violence, is more justifiable than war, in which thousands go forth without any cause of personal quarrel and massacre each other. On Wednesday, April 21st, I dined with him at Mr. Thrale's. A gentleman, footnote tells us this is Murphy, attacked Garrick for being vain. Johnson said, "No wonder, sir, that he is vain, a man who is perpetually flattered in every mode that can be conceived. So many bellows have blown the fire that one wonders he is not by this time become a cinder." I said, "And such bellows, too. Lord Mansfield with his cheeks like to burst, Lord Chatham like an Aeolus. I have read such notes from them to him as were enough to turn his head." Johnson said, "True. When he whom everybody else flatters me, I then am truly happy." Mrs. Thrale said, "The sentiment is in Congreve, I think." Johnson said, "Yes, madam, in the way of the world. Quote, if there's delight in love, 'tis when I see that hearts which others bleed for me." No, sir, I should not be surprised, though Garrick chain the ocean and lash the winds. I said, "Should it not be, sir, lash the ocean and chain the winds?" Johnson said, "No, sir, recollect the original. In coram et juram solitus severus flagellus. Barbarus Aeolus elolio nemquam hoc in carcere passos ipsum compendibus quae vixerat inonigium," which of course, as we all know, our Latin translates as, "But how did he return, this haughty brave, who whipped the winds and made the sea his slave? Though Neptune took unkindly to be bound, and Eurus never such hard usage found in his Aeolian prisons underground." From Juvenal. This does very well when both the winds and the sea are personified and mentioned by their mythological names, as in Juvenal. But when they are mentioned in plain language, the application of the epithet suggests to me is the most obvious, and accordingly my friend himself in his imitation of the passage which describes Xerxes has, "The waves he lashed and enchains the wind." Potato, Boswell. The modes of living in different countries, and the various views with which men travel in quest of new scenes, having been talked of, a learned gentleman, it says here that gentleman was William FitzHerbert, who holds a considerable office in the law, expatiated on the happiness of his savage life. Here we go again. And mentioned an instance of an officer who had actually lived for some time in the wilds of America, of whom, when in that state, he quoted this reflection with an air of admiration, as if it had been deeply philosophical. Quote, "Here am I, free and unrestrained, amidst the rude magnificence of nature, with this Indian woman by my side, and this gun with which I can procure food when I want it. What more can be desired for human happiness?" It did not require much sagacity to foresee that such a sentiment would not be permitted to pass without due animadversion. Johnson said, "Do not allow yourself, sir, to be imposed upon by such gross absurdity. It is sad stuff. It is brutish. It is bull could speak. If a bull could speak, he might as well exclaim, 'Here I am. I wish this cow in this grass, and I with this cow in this grass. What being can enjoy greater felicity?'" We talked of the melancholy end of a gentleman. Oh, I'm sorry. That gentleman was probably W. Pepys, P-E-P-Y-S. This gentleman we're talking about now, the melancholy end gentleman, is FitzHerbert. Who had destroyed himself? Johnson said, it was owing to imaginary difficulties in his affairs, which, had he talked with my any friend, would soon have vanished. Boswell said, do you think, sir, that all who commit suicide are mad? And Johnson said, sir, they are often not universally disordered in their intellects, but one passion presses so upon them that they yield to it and commit suicide as a passionate man will stab another. He added, I have often thought that after a man has taken the resolution to kill himself, it is not courage in him to do anything, however desperate, because he has nothing to fear. Goldsmith said, I don't see that. Johnson said, nay, but, my dear sir, why should not you see what everyone else sees? Goldsmith said, it is for fear of something that he has resolved to kill himself, and will not that timid disposition restrain him? Johnson said, it does not signify that the fear of something made him resolve. It is upon the state of his mind, upon the resolution is taken, after that resolution is taken, that I argue. Suppose a man, either from fear or pride or conscience or whatever motive, has resolved to kill himself. When once the resolution is taken, he has nothing to fear. He may then go and take the King of Prussia by the nose at the head of his army. He cannot fear the wreck who is resolved to kill himself. When Eustace Bugel was walking down to the Thames, determined to drown himself, he might, if he pleased, without any apprehension of danger, have turned aside and first set fire to St. James's Palace. It's a good, cheery note for New Year's Eve. On Tuesday, April 27th, Mr. Beauclerk and I called on him in the morning. As we walked up Johnson's Court, I said, I have a veneration for this court, and was glad to find that Beauclerk had the same reverential enthusiasm. We found Johnson alone. We talked of Mr. Andrew Stuart's elegant and plausible letters to Lord Mansfield, a copy of which had been sent to the author by the author to Dr. Johnson. Johnson said, they have not answered the end. They have not been talked of. I have never heard of them. This is owing to the not being sold. People seldom read a book which is given to them, and few are given. The way to spread a work is to sell it at a low price. No man will send to buy a thing that costs even 6p without an intention to read it. It's good advice. I said, may it not be doubted, sir, whether it be proper to publish letters arraigning the ultimate decision of an important cause by the supreme judicature of the nation? Johnson said, no, sir, I do not think it was wrong to publish those letters. If they are thought to do harm, why not answer them? But they will do no harm. If Mr. Douglas be indeed the son of Lady Jane, he cannot be hurt. If he not be your son, and yet has this great estate of the family of Douglas, he may well submit to have a pamphlet against him by Andrew Stuart. Sir, I think such a publication does good as it does good to show us the possibilities of human life. And, sir, you will not say that the Douglas cause was a cause of easy decision, when it divided your court as much as it could do to be determined at all. When your judges were 7 and 7, the casting vote of the president must be given on one side or another. No matter for my argument on which one or the other must be taken. As which I am to move, there is no matter which leg I move first. And then, sir, it was otherwise determined here. No, sir, a more dubious determination of any question cannot be imagined. Footnote here. I regretted that Dr. Johnson never took the trouble to study a question which interested nations. He would not even read a pamphlet which I wrote upon it, entitled The Essence of the Douglas Cause, which, I have reason to flatter myself, has considerable effect in favor of Mr. Douglas, of whose illegitimate filiation I was then, and am still, firmly convinced. Let me add that no fact can be made respectably ascertained than by the judgment of the most august tribunal of the world, a judgment in which Lord Mansfield and Lord Camden united in 1769, and from which only 5 of a numerous body entered the protest. Okay, I think they were talking about that like 700 pages ago. Let me just double check before I stop reading. Douglas. I remember there was some bastard son and some kind of blah 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 about wanting money. All right, here we are on the D's. Dodsley, Dorset, Douglas. What page am I on now? 523. There's a bunch of Douglases, so that doesn't make it. Well, I guess not, because there's one mention that's page 523, and that's the page we're on, and he's not mentioned again until 892. So, must have been some other controversial bastard case from before. Anyway, till next time, Happy New Year's. Bye from